That Kenma scene? Wow. Haikyuu the movie, the decisive battle at the garbage dump, is the first part in the two-part finale for the sports anime Haikyuu. For those who don't know, and if you don't know, I'm not sure if this movie is going to be for you, but Haikyuu is a volleyball anime and it centers around the Karasuno volleyball team for their high school. In this film, we see their team versus their rivals, Nekoma. Now, these two teams have been rivals for a very long time, and that goes beyond these high schoolers being in this particular team, so generations before and things like that, and those within this team are definitely aware of that. They've done several practice matches together, but this is their first kind of real match, and using a film to showcase this is really interesting because it really emphasizes the importance of this match. I'm not really the biggest fan of anime films made from an anime TV show. I think they can be done well, but I grew up watching Naruto and One Piece and Bleach, and the movies that came out of those series and similar ones weren't always the greatest, so I kind of have low expectations for most anime films, and I have specific requirements for ones that I do really like. With these sorts of films, you kind of end up with two major issues. One of the problems with these sorts of films can be that they aren't canonical, and even though you want to see more of these characters and see them in fun different settings, there is no real reason to watch the film, so it's just not always great. Another issue on like the polar opposite end is that it is canonical, but because of that they have to remake the entire film into an arc for the anime show. We've seen that recently with Demon Slayer, as they made the Mugen Train film, which is a good film and it's well animated, but they had to remake the entire film as an arc, which is the second season. Doing this, you lose hype and momentum for the series because people are looking forward to that second season. Most of the fans have already seen the film. The second season's just a remake of the film, so they're not really gonna watch it unless they're a die-hard fan or they haven't seen the film. And so you kind of just lose an entire season. However, a really good example is Jujutsu Kaisen, because JJK 0 is a prequel to the anime series. So it's not something that's currently happening within the show itself, and it's something that happened before. Now, this film is canonical and it's important to the story, but it's something that they just need to reference and touch on within the show. They don't need to remake the entire thing because it is not something currently happening within the series. The Haikyuu movie is a finale for the series, so I kind of had my doubts about it because it's finishing off a TV show. They might have to remake it or do kind of like what Attack on Titan did, where it's like divided parts for people that only watch the show to experience it. But after watching this, I did really appreciate the medium that they've chosen to create this in. One of the things that can be a little frustrating when you're watching a sports anime is that a match can take up the entire season, which is fine, it's fine, but you're stopping and starting, and especially when you're watching it weekly, you kind of lose the momentum of a real volleyball match. But using a movie instead, the match is continuous and you get that kind of hype and momentum of watching a real volleyball match. So I think that after this, a lot of other sports animes will probably start doing movies. We already have a Blue Lock one that's coming out soon as well. So I do think that it being a film is really good and it worked really well in their favor. It was a great way to tell the story. Another thing about the story for this is that they jump straight into it, which I actually do like. So the Spy Family movie that came out recently, they kind of do an overview of the show before jumping into it, which is really good for people who are just watching Spy Family for the first time. It can kind of be a short introduction into the kind of show and just to see if this is something they vibe with. Whereas Haikyuu, even though it is a volleyball anime, so the basic understanding is there, I think a lot of the things that make this film great rely on the character development that we get, and it really is emphasized when you've already watched the show. So it just jumps straight in. There's no time wasted in this film. They use every minute they can in a really interesting way, and it really shows and pays off. As we are looking at the rivalries between these two teams, we also see a rivalry between Hinata on the Karasuno team and Kenma on the Nekoma team. And it's really interesting because they are quite different, with Hinata being full of energy and really just loving volleyball, whereas Kenma is a little bit more reserved, and as much as he actually does like to analyze volleyball, this isn't like his big passion in life or anything like that. And one of the really big aspects within the show is that despite their personality differences, they do eventually want to be able to verse each other in a proper match. Since they've done so many practice rounds, this is finally their real match, and Hinata wants Kenma to genuinely enjoy this match together. And it's really interesting to see the dynamic between the two of them within the film, and to learn more about Kenma and the rest of Nekoma as well. So I don't really give ratings for movies or shows, but if I were to give this a rating, it'd probably be an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. I think that the animation is used really well to tell the story, and I think it was a really good choice to use a film to showcase the end of this series. I guess we'll see in the future if they will do an arc that's a remade version of this for the show, but I think the film is a really good option because you get the momentum, and the way that they do that is really cool. Now, diving into kind of spoiler territory, that Kenma scene, wow. So you get this scene where Kenma is just breathing, panting for about 3 minutes, and you see everything from his perspective. Like as if you're playing a first-person shooter game, or you have VR on or something like that. You see his hands, you see the ball coming to him, you see everything from his perspective. And it's so interesting the way that they did that. And this is right towards the end of their match. And Kenma, who doesn't really exert a lot of energy playing these rounds, he finds kind of the easiest way to do things and what's logical is going out of his way to keep this match going. And you continuously see this within his perspective of what he's looking at, who he's looking at, what he's seeing. And it's really, really interesting, especially with that being the last aspect of the match, something where the momentum is just building and building and building and building, and you can see it in his mind, you can see where he's going, what he's doing, and he's genuinely running and jumping for this ball. And just seeing it from that perspective is so interesting because it makes you feel like you're part of the team, you're genuinely in this film. And I've not seen this kind of perspective used within anime, and because you're watching it from his perspective as if you are actually within this film, when the ball drops and it ends, that's the end of the game, it feels so sudden. It feels like a sudden drop, and you realize you've been watching this film for well over an hour, and the pacing is so good that you kind of don't realize how long it has been, and that it's been the length of potentially a match, and the ball drops. It feels sudden, but it's not sudden at the same time. And that's how these matches kind of like end in a way. And I think that this makes you feel a bit more for the characters because you want them to continue. You're obviously rooting for a particular team, but they're telling a story together, and they both genuinely want to continue playing, and you want to keep watching them. This is one of the major aspects of the film, about how even though they're all different, they just want to keep going. They don't want it to end. They don't care if it's 5 rounds, 10 rounds, they just want to keep going. And especially because it is such a big match for them, being the rivalry match, when it ends, they know that they don't verse each other again, that's it. And for a lot of their third years who will go off to college or university after this, that's it. I really think the use of that in those last 3 minutes of the match really hit that point home. And it was just really, really well done. I really like that we get a lot of Kenma flashbacks as well. I actually feel like Kenma was more of the main character than Hinata was in this film, which is really, really interesting. But learning a bit more of his background and how he thinks, and how this match in itself feels reminiscent and nostalgic of the feelings that he has for his friends, is really, really great. I think that the way that they incorporated that was really well done. I do think that perhaps it feels like there's maybe a little bit too much in the memory bank that we see, but I don't think that's necessarily to do with the memories that we see. I think that I just would have preferred more of the action of them playing volleyball. We get some incredible animation as they play, and I really wish that we got a bit more of that. But I also understand that of course the game ends, it's abrupt, it's part of the story, it works well. I just wish that they had showcased a little bit more before that. So those are my thoughts on the Haikyuu film that just came out. I can't wait to see the second part as well, especially since these 2 parts are going to be films, and we don't know yet when the second part will be released, but hopefully we'll hear about it soon. Let me know down below what you guys thought about this film if you did go see it, and that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!